What happens when a beloved television star suddenly finds himself ensnared in a web of assumptions and misinterpretations that quickly spiral out of control? Today, we're diving into one of the most jaw-dropping moments in daytime TV history, when David Boreanaz, actor who enchanted audiences as Angel in Special, Agent Seeley Booth, was thrust into a volatile confrontation with Kelly Clarkson that no one anticipated. This was not your standard awkward celebrity interview. This was a full-scale meltdown that left everyone in the studio questioning exactly what they had just witnessed. Before we unpack how it all went down, make sure to hit subscribe and drop your thoughts in the comments. What do you think really triggered this storm? By the end of this story, you're going to be reconsidering who's truly at fault here. It began like any ordinary episode of The Kelly Clarkson Show. Kelly was her usual effervescent self, ready to chat with David about his latest projects and maybe share a few laughs about his decades-long Hollywood career. The audience was buzzing, filled with longtime fans of Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Bones, many of whom had been waiting years for a glimpse of David in such a relaxed, playful environment. Kelly launched the segment with her signature warmth, greeting him with genuine enthusiasm. "David, it's so wonderful to have you here. I have to admit, I was a huge Bones fan, and, well, I might have had a little crush on Booth," she said, laughing lightly. The audience chuckled along, and David returned a polite smile, though there was a hint of reservation in his demeanor. "That's really kind of you to say, Kelly. The show meant a lot to all of us who worked on it," he replied, measured and professional. But Kelly wasn't done. She leaned in, teasingly curious. "I mean, seriously, the chemistry between you and Emily. It was just electric. Did you ever, have moments off camera where you felt that spark?" David's expression shifted almost imperceptibly. "Emily is a consummate professional and a dear friend. We had wonderful working chemistry, but that's all there was to it," he said, his tone tightening slightly. Kelly pressed on, missing the subtle warning. "Oh, come on, you can tell me. Fans always wonder if there's more behind the scenes. When two people have that kind of on-screen magic, surely there's at least a little something real, right?" She leaned forward, expectant and playful. David shifted, his jaw tightening. "Kelly, I think you're misunderstanding something. Emily and I worked together professionally for 12 years. She's married, I'm married, and we respect our families. Nothing inappropriate ever happened, and I'm honestly not sure why this is being discussed," he said, his voice firm and tinged with irritation. Rather than back down, Kelly seemed to interpret his response as playful resistance. "Oh, you're being coy. That's exactly what someone would say if there really was something there. Come on, David. This is a safe space. We're all adults here." The audience laughed, but the energy had shifted. It was no longer lighthearted. Something tense was creeping in. David's eyes narrowed, irritation now unmistakable. "No, Kelly, I'm not being coy. I'm trying to maintain dignity. What you're suggesting is inappropriate and disrespectful to Emily and our families. I came here to discuss my work, not fuel gossip," he said, his voice rising slightly. Kelly seemed momentarily startled, then tried to laugh it off. "Whoa, okay. Clearly, I hit a nerve. I didn't mean anything by it. Was just having fun with the fans' favorite theories. But speaking of relationships, I wanted to ask about something else I heard." David's expression grew wary. "There have been rumors about tension on set during the later seasons of Bones. Some say there were intense disagreements about the direction of the show." Kelly continued, her tone deceptively casual. David's hands gripped the arms of his chair. "Where exactly are you getting this information, Kelly? I have to say, this interview is taking a turn I definitely wasn't prepared for," he said, voice strained, barely keeping his composure. Kelly's smile faltered, then returned, but there was a new glint in her eyes, a determined edge that signaled she wasn't going to let his discomfort steer the conversation. "Oh, you know how Hollywood is, David. People talk, stories circulate. I just want your perspective," she said, her casual shrugged, anything but casual. David's voice tightened, frustration barely contained. The audience could feel the shifty, lighthearted energy replaced by tension and unpredictability. "Well, for example, I heard there were heated discussions about storylines, particularly your character's development. Some sources say you weren't always easy to work with when things didn't go your way," she said, her tone now distinctly investigative. At odds with the show's usual format, David's face went completely still, his gaze locked on Kelly. "Sources," he repeated, his voice low and dangerous. "What sources, Kelly? Because I'm starting to get the impression that this entire interview was set up under false pretenses." Kelly's protest sounded hurried, almost hollow. "Oh no, David, that's not what this is about at all. I'm just trying to give our audience a real, authentic conversation. People want the real you, not just the polished Hollywood version. The real me." David's voice rose, carrying through the studio. Audience members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "The real me is someone who has worked in this industry for over 25 years, who has always conducted himself professionally and, who has never had to defend his character or work ethic, to a talk show host who apparently thinks ambush journalism is appropriate for daytime television. Kelly's face flushed, but she pressed forward, oblivious to the growing tension. Look, I'm not trying to ambush anyone, but when you're in the public eye, people are naturally curious about what happens behind the scenes. Some of the people I've spoken to say you could be pretty demanding when things didn't go your way. David snapped upright, his chair scraping sharply against the floor, echoing through the suddenly silent studio. Are you telling me you sought out negative information about me before inviting me on your show? That you've been conducting an investigation into my professional conduct? The cameras hummed softly, capturing every second of the studio's thickening silence. Kelly looked genuinely startled, but instead of easing the tension, she doubled. Don, I think you're overreacting. David, this is just normal interview preparation. Every host does research on their guests, she said, but her voice wavered, betraying uncertainty. Normal interview preparation. David stepped closer to her desk, fists clenched. Normal preparation is reading about someone's current projects, their career highlights, maybe some personal details they're comfortable sharing. Normal preparation is not digging up gossip and unverified rumors to blindside someone during what they thought would be a friendly conversation about their work. Kelly tried to regain control, her media training kicking in. Okay. I can see I've touched on sensitive topics. Why don't we just step back and talk about your new projects? I know you've got some exciting things coming up that our audience would love to hear about. David cut her off, voice tight and controlled, yet more intimidating than any shout could have been. No, Kelly, we're not moving on. You can't throw around insinuations about my professional conduct and then brush it off as nothing when you realize you've crossed a line. The tension was palpable. Audience members glanced nervously at one another, unsure if they should even be witnessing this. Behind her, Kelly's producers gestured frantically, but it was unclear if they wanted her to continue or end the segment immediately. Kelly made one last attempt. David, I really think you're taking this the wrong way. I'm a fan of your work, and I was just trying to have an honest conversation. Sometimes the truth isn't comfortable, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't talk about it. David let out a short, bitter laugh. The truth? Kelly, you don't even know what truth is. You've built this entire line of questioning on anonymous sources with anonymous complaints. Do you have any idea how damaging it is to spread gossip about someone's professional reputation on national television? I'm not spreading gossip. Kelly shot back, frustration creeping into her tone. I'm asking legitimate questions based on credible sources within the industry. Credible sources. David's voice rose, fury now fully unmasked. Name one. Kelly. Just one person who actually worked with me who said anything negative about my professionalism. Kelly opened her mouth but no words came. Silence stretched for long, excruciating seconds. The audience could feel the weight of it. She either couldn't or wouldn't give the answer, he demanded. That's what I thought, David said, dripping with contempt. You've built this ambush on rumors and secondhand gossip, and now you expect me to defend myself against accusations you can't even substantiate. Kelly's face burned bright red, a mix of embarrassment and anger. Look, David, I don't think it's unreasonable to ask about your work relationships. You're a public figure, and sure, people are curious about what you're like to work with, David said, his voice calm but cutting. There's a difference between curiosity and character assassination, Kelly, and what you're doing right now feels a lot more like the latter. You invited me here under the pretense of a friendly interview, and instead, you've turned it into a trial where I'm supposed to defend my reputation against anonymous accusations. The camera operator shifted nervously, alternating between close-ups of David's steely gaze and Kelly's increasingly flustered expressions. The audience went from uneasy murmurs to complete silence, as if the studio itself were holding its breath. I never said anything about character assassination, Kelly protested, her tone lacking conviction. Really? David's hands trembled. Slightly, whether from anger or adrenaline, because that's exactly what you're doing, attacking my professionalism. Suggesting I'm difficult to work with based on rumors from people you won't even name. That's not journalism, Kelly, that's tabloid garbage. And I expected better from someone with your reputation. Kelly's composure finally cracked. My reputation? You want to talk about reputation? You're the one standing there losing. You're cool on live television because I asked a few tough questions. Maybe the real question is why you're so defensive if there's nothing to hide. Her words hung in the air like a toxic cloud. David stared at her, disbelief etched across his features, almost frightening in its intensity. When he finally spoke, his voice dropped so low that the microphones barely captured it, but every word carried the weight of barely restrained fury. Nothing to hide, he repeated slowly, as if testing the absurdity of the claim. Kelly, I have spent my entire career building a reputation on hard work, professionalism, and respect for my colleagues. Never, not once, Has anyone I've actually worked with accused me of being difficult or unprofessional? And now you're suggesting that my reaction to your baseless accusations somehow proves they're true. David's face shifted from flushed anger to a cold, terrifying the kind of stillness that signals a storm is coming. He took a measured breath and continued, his voice steady, icy, commanding the room's attention. Kelly, I want you to listen very carefully, he said, locking eyes with her. I came here today as a favor to your producers, who assured me this would be a light-hearted conversation about my career. Instead, I find myself being interrogated about my character. Based on claims you refuse to substantiate, that's not just unprofessional, it's cowardly. Kelly's mouth fell open, stunned. Cowardly. David, you need to calm down. You're making this bigger than it needs to be. You just accused me of having something to hide because I refused to dignify your gossip with a response. David interrupted, his voice rising sharply. Audience members flinched. And now you're telling me to calm down? Do you understand what you've done here today? Do you have any idea how this looks? Callie opened her mouth to respond, but her voice was shaky now, all pretense of control gone. The studio was tense, every person in the room acutely aware that the interview had tipped into territory none of them could have anticipated. Asterisk, just doing my job. David, sometimes that means asking the hard questions others won't, Kelly said, trying to sound firm. David laughed, but it was a harsh, humorless sound. Your job, Kelly, your job is to entertain people, make your guests feel welcomed. Ambush them with unsubstantiated rumors disguised as legitimate inquiry. And the fact that you think this counts as journalism shows exactly how far this industry has fallen. He started walking toward the edge of the set, then stopped, turning back to face her one last time. You know what's most frustrating? I actually respected you before today. I thought you were one of the good ones. Someone who understood the line between entertainment and exploitation. Kelly's expression faltered, a flicker of understanding passing over her face. David, please, can we just start over? I misread the room, and I apologize if I made you uncomfortable. David shook his head, resolute. No, Kelly, can't start over. You can't unsay what you've said or undo the assumptions you made. This interview is over. He unclipped his microphone, the small gesture carrying immense weight in the stunned silence of the studio. David, wait, Kelly called out, standing for the first time during the segment. Please don't leave like this. We can edit this part out. Reshoot, whatever you need. David paused at the edge of the stage, his expression a mix of disappointment and disgust. Edit it out, Kelly. That's exactly the problem. You think you can say whatever you want, cross any line, and then pretend it never happened when there are consequences. That's not how real life works. It's certainly not how professional relationships work. He turned to the audience, many now openly staring in shock. I apologize to all of you for having to witness this, he said, voice softening slightly. You came expecting entertainment and instead watched someone's reputation dragged through the mud based on anonymous gossip. With that, David Boreanaz walked off the set of the Kelly Clarkson show, leaving behind a speechless host, a stunned audience. In what would become one of the most talked about television moments of the year, Kelly remained frozen at her desk for several seconds before finally sitting down, staring into the camera with a mix of defiance and uncertainty. Well, she whispered, voice barely audible. I guess that's not exactly how any of us expected this conversation to go. The cameras rolled for a few more seconds, capturing her bewildered expression and the audience's murmurs before cutting to commercial. But the damage was done. Everyone in that studio knew they had witnessed something unforgettable. Simple celebrity interview, spiraling into a masterclass on how quickly things can go wrong when assumptions are made and boundaries crossed. The question lingered in the air. Did David Boreanaz's explosive reaction make sense, or was it an overreaction to what might have been innocent curiosity taken too far? And was Kelly out of line with her research and approacher, just doing what any interviewer might do when asking the questions everyone secretly wants answered? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe for more shocking celebrity moments you won't see anywhere else. The truth is often stranger than fiction, and sometimes the most explosive moments happen when you least expect them.